Hi, everyone. I'm Sean. I can't see any of you, but I hope you can see me and this is all working really well. Um, First off, I just want to say thank you to NFFTY for hosting such an amazing virtual event despite all the circumstances, and for being such an incredible festival for young filmmakers. It's really, really special, and we all appreciate you very much. I am super excited to introduce our keynote speaker today. He is one of the directors of the new Disney animated movie Raya and the Last Dragon, which we'll talk about a little bit later. He is the director of feature films like Blindspotting and Summertime, which premiered at the 2020 Sundance Film Festival and is coming out next year. And he's directed a bunch of amazing music videos for artists like Billie Eilish, Thundercat, Carly Rae Jepsen, Capital Cities, Clipping, Passion Pit, and he's just also like a really cool person. And I'm super excited to introduce him to the virtual screen. Carlos López Estrada.
There we go.
That worked.
John.
Hi, Carlos. This is exciting and strange, but
it's very exciting. It's very strange. Thank you for having me, and thank you, NFFTY, for the invite.
Yeah, so I guess for everyone watching, I feel like this is going to be super informal. I think Carlos and I are just going to talk, and I'm going to ask him questions, and it'll be, I think, what they call a moderated Q&A. But and there will be a dedicated Q&A time at the end, but if at any time you guys have any questions, feel free to put it in the chat and we can kind of pepper it throughout.
You can also say that we're real life friends. I feel like you forgot that part.
I did say that. Did I not say that? I said you're a really cool person, which I feel like that kind of implies that we're cool. Real life friends, and we're also virtual friends in this little screen right now. But before we begin, Carlos has been working on a Disney animated movie called Raya and the Last Dragon, and the trailer dropped recently, and it is beautiful and amazing. And Carlos, if you want to talk a little bit more about that and play the trailer if you want, so everyone knows.
Well, maybe, what can I say? This trailer released last week on Wednesday, so it's brand new. We've been working on this movie for a long time, and we're not quite done, but getting closer. The movie is releasing in March of next year, which is soon. Maybe I'll just play it. I think I'm going to share my screen, and then I can tell you a little bit more about the movie, or I don't know. You may have questions about it. Okay, let me see if I can do this. I'm sharing my screen. Wait, let me do it again because I don't know if I was sharing my audio. Okay, I was sharing my audio. So here's the screen. Okay, this is the trailer for Raya and the Last Dragon, and we'll talk about it in a second.
Focus. Give me some shell. I gotcha. Life, I trained to become a guardian of the Dragon Gem. But this world has changed. And its people are divided. Now, to restore peace, I must find the last dragon. My name is Raya. Chuck. You're getting a little too big for this, bud.
Should we watch the solo trailer as well?
Yeah, I think we should just keep watching trailers for the full hour.
Disney
And then
streaming on Disney Plus December 25th.
What's happening?
Music is all I think about.
There we go. This is going great. Thank you. So we just released that. Very excited about it. I joined Disney Animation. Wait, sorry, do you have questions? I was just gonna start talking about it.
no, you can talk a little bit about it. I think, yeah, if you want to talk a little bit about sort of how you've been working on the movie, how you joined Walt Disney Animation, and sort of what it's been like kind of directing this movie during quarantine.
It's been a whirlwind. I joined Disney Animation, I think maybe like a year and a half ago, and very quickly joined this Raya team, and essentially been working every day since then on the movie. It's crazy. I mean, we come from similar worlds, Sean, so we're used to independent filmmaking with, a handful of people that you really trust and work really closely with for a long period of time. And then all of a sudden I was exposed to this amazing environment of, 900 plus artists and technicians that are all working now remotely. So it's been a incredible experience, but it's been overwhelming to say the least. We started production of the movie earlier this year, and 2 months later we got sent home thinking that it'd be away for a week or so, and then people had to start going into the studio and pulling the computers out and just started working from home. So we're going to finish the movie from home, and it's quite a feat, and we're so it's 900 plus people working from their homes, and we're all zooming like this all day long, and people are animating from their living rooms and their bedrooms, and it looks gorgeous, and very proud of it. So I'm excited to show it.
It's amazing.
Yeah,
I can't wait to see it. I think it would be helpful for a lot of the people watching. I'd imagine a lot of the people kind of tuning in are young emerging filmmakers who are kind of getting their feet wet, starting out as filmmakers or kind of directing short form things. And so I was wondering if we can kind of maybe let's start a little bit at the beginning.
Yeah.
I know you still direct music videos now, but I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about your time as a filmmaker, sort of, maybe just graduated from Chapman, and how your time at Chapman kind of informed you as a filmmaker, and then just when you sort of started directing music videos, and how you're able to kind of find your footing in the industry and find artists that you worked well with. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, well, I was born in Mexico City, moved to Miami, did high school there. And while I was in high school, I was really into music, and I played in bands, and I was into that whole scene. Then I went to film school. I came here to California to Chapman. And because so many of my friends were still musicians and were still doing the band thing, I had a lot of close friends that were starting to get more popular, or starting to get signed by indie labels, or were continuing sort of like doing the music thing. And I was early in film school, so it felt like a very obvious path to sort of like start working by doing music videos. So my first 6 years as a filmmaker, I spent working with indie artists, doing no budget videos. Sometimes when we got lucky, we got, a few $100 on a good day, a really good budget, we get a few thousand. And it was a very natural growth because I was young, I didn't have a lot of experience, I needed to build a reel. My friends who I was in film school with were as well, so we were all helping each other out, like crewing on each other's projects. And the people that we were working for were also young, whether it was young bands or young artists or young labels, young production companies. So I just sort of like came up in this small network of filmmakers that were all trying to get any opportunity to get some experience. And that went on for a little while. I graduated Chapman. I moved up here to LA, and I continued doing that. Eventually started doing some commercials. And long story short, the videos really are what led to my first movie, and it was through a relationship that started with David Diggs. He is the rapper of a rap group called Clipping, and I think I first met them at this point. I think it's like 7 or 8 years ago. Did a $1,000 music video for them. We shot it here in LA. We obviously couldn't afford to really like do much with that money. I think we put that money into an animal wrangler. So we piggybacked it from another production that we were shooting that weekend, and we used all the equipment, and all the crew were friends of mine. So I asked them, do you mind helping us in this super low budget production that we're doing for this artist that I think is really talented? We shot that video. It's a clipping video for a song called Work Work. And that was 7 years ago. And that started this creative relationship between David and myself that has lasted, a really long time. I think I ended up doing maybe like 7 or 8 videos for clipping throughout the years. Coincidentally, we both moved to New York for different reasons. He went to New York to be in Hamilton, and I moved to New York just because my lease here ended, and I thought that it'd be a good opportunity to try the New York life. But we're both there and kept working there together, did a few like theater projects, a few spoken word projects. And probably the week that he got off of Hamilton, he got an invitation. These producers that he had been working with told him that they wanted to finance a script that he had been writing with his writing partner, Rafael Casal. And anyway, long story short, that was Blind Spotting. That was probably like 4 years ago. Is that good enough? Did I give you more than you wanted, or is that
way too much, Carlos? I'm just kidding. No, that's super helpful. I think for people to know, because I think we met kind of right after Blind Spotting, and I remember just like knowing a lot of your work and knowing that like, oh, he'd send like music videos and animated music videos and these like theater workshops and like and obviously Blind Spotting, and then you asked me to work on your second movie, Summertime, which I won't talk too much about it right now, but it was one of the most inspiring experiences of my life. And I think
we don't have to, but if you can,
we'll talk about it later. But I think something that is really striking is like, I feel like you found a really good way to balance like these really, really DIY indie, no money, like $1,000 music videos with also DIY indie like movies, but also like TV episodes for Legion. And I'm sort of curious, like, do you find that there's a similarity between like, doing things for no money with your friends, like with the Bars Workshop and stuff for like FX and Legion and like Raya? Is there like a overlap between all of them?
I mean, there's a lot of obvious differences, but I think that what it boils down to, it's very much the same filmmaking principles. And I'm so glad that I got my filmmaking legs in indie in indie filmmaking, because I think that it's really the same muscles that you have to exercise, the same set of problems. You know, you may the dollar signs may be a little bit higher or a little bit lower or in between, but it's really just dealing with people. It's really just collaborating. It's really just like trying to figure out how to tell like the most honest, effective story. And I there's a lot of technicalities that I think are different, but the spirit of it is the same. And I think I've gotten really lucky with the projects that I've worked on, because the range is so broad. And yeah, I mean, we did this indie feature last summer with a very small crew and running around cameras and no permits. That was also one of the most inspiring things I've done. And then I went from that to working at Disney, the studio film with a lot of artists, a lot of people. And it was kind of mind-blowing just to see that the conversations that we were having in both projects were essentially exactly the same. Different tools and different numbers and different scope of crews, but it really is, I think the conversations are exactly the same.
Good answer.
I don't know. Did that answer your question? I feel like I didn't.
I think so. Oh, we have questions. We have questions coming in. Okay.
That wasn't a great answer. I wish I could do over.
We'll give you another one later in a different question. Okay, here's a question. How do you make the jump from music videos to creating a debut feature film? I think an interesting thing you could talk about here, Carlos, is that not a lot of people know about, I feel like, is High and Mighty was your first long form narrative thing, right?
Yeah, that was, I did this digital like episodic thing for Warner Brothers started this, I don't know what you call it, like I guess like a digital platform. It doesn't exist anymore, but it was called Stage 13, or does exist. Oh my God, I don't know what I'm saying. I think they shut down.
We're gonna get fired.
I know, don't quote me. I think they closed, but if they didn't, I'm glad, because they were doing cool stuff. But they hired me to do my first long form narrative job, and it was this 8-episode digital show that took place in East LA. And it happened probably a little bit less than a year before Blind Spotting. And I had done music videos and I had done commercials, and I'd done some theater, but I had never done any long form narrative. So I think that High and Mighty ended up becoming like almost like my preparation for the long form world and for the feature world. I think you can see it on HBO. I haven't seen it in a while. What the question is, how do you make the jump? Well, I don't know. Obviously, I can't claim to have a formula, because I don't think there is such a thing. But for me, music videos provided a really unique opportunity to sort of like hone my craft, for lack of a better phrase. But it was a very low risk way of getting experience and trying working with different crews and trying working in different projects, different tones, different artists, different collaboration. And because I started doing low budget videos, I think that it allowed me to try and fail and learn what worked and what didn't, get better, and to start creating my sort of like network of collaborators. And I think that eventually started expanding, and because we were all starting to get professional opportunities, we started essentially feeding each other with these jobs. So whether my friends who were musicians, they were getting signed to labels and they were getting some budgets, and then they were hooking me and my friends up with opportunities, or whether it was a friend who needed some art direction and would hire me to come in and help lend a hand, or whether it was me that didn't have a big budget and needed cheap labor. So I would ask my friends like, hey, do you mind just working, a weekend for very, very low rate? So I think it was just that spirit of let's make something out of nothing, or let's try to build something with limited resources, and let's use our limitations creatively. And eventually, time passed, and my friends, my collaborators, the people that I was working with and for grew, and I think it really catalyzed on, as I was mentioning, on blind spotting. David got a big opportunity, and because we had been working for so long, and because we had a shorthand, and because he trusted me as a director, it was easy for him to just say like, hey, come along, and I think this is a perfect opportunity for us to make a movie, and that movie kind of changed my life. So I don't know if my answer is very helpful, but maybe it is.
We can ask them later how helpful we're being.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the people tuning in are probably filmmakers who are sort of starting to develop their first feature project, or their first long form narrative projects, or at least have the ambition to eventually go and direct long form things, whatever they may be. And I remember one thing that I thought was so funny for some reason. While we were working on Summertime together, I think a bunch of us were just hanging out, and you were on your laptop, and you were like, sorry guys, I really want to hang out with you guys right now, but we don't have enough money, and I'm cutting a bunch of stuff from the script. And you said it so nonchalantly, and in my head I was like, that sounds like a problem. That sounds like we need more money or something. But I remember you telling me later, you're just like, oh no, that happens with everything. That happened with Blind Spotting. It happened with Legion. It's just you get to that phase where the script is this, and you have this much money, and you just have to start cutting. And you said it with oh, this is just part of the process. And so I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about what are some things that you wish you had known going into your first feature, or you wish you had known as a first-time filmmaker that now that you maybe would have done a little bit differently, or that people who are starting to work on their first features would appreciate knowing.
Oh, that's interesting. I don't even remember that. I think maybe why I said it so nonchalantly is because it is the nature of filmmaking. I think no amount of budget and no amount of resources is going to prevent us film people from having to make sacrifices. And if I could give my slightly younger self advice, I think it would be that to know that the process is really full of sacrifices, and I feel like it's easy to get frustrated or to let those sort of get in the way. But the moment where you realize that no matter how hard you work, no matter how hard you prep, no matter how much money you have, and how much resources you have around you, you're still going to have to make compromises, and you're still going to have to negotiate to get anything made. And I'm not saying like business negotiating. I'm just saying troubleshoot. And the moment that you know that you can turn those limitations into creative possibilities, I think that is when first of all, I stopped stressing. I still stress a lot, but I started stressing a little bit less. And also you open up a world of creative possibilities, because I think it's easy to say oh, we don't have enough money, so I'm not going to be able to do, this thing that's in my head. But music videos, what they did to me, and it is a muscle that I think I've had to exercise in every single project I've ever done, including now in an animated Disney movie, is that you have limitations. There's time. There's the physical amount of work that people can do. There's budgeting and scheduling and logistics, and those are going to have to shape your vision. So, sorry, going back to what you were saying, I think music videos were a good way for me to understand how to use those limitations creatively and to say, okay, we're not going to be able to afford an amazing film camera. There's a chance that we may not be able to do this project. Can we come up with a creative solution for it? So there's a few projects like in the super low budget days that we shot on cell phones, we shot on iPhones. And honestly, they're some of the coolest projects that I've ever done. And I still look back at them and I feel like that limitation of not being able to have like a real film camera allowed us to do stuff that we would have never done had we had those resources. So we had to make this creative sacrifice. We were like, okay, we can't get all the things that we can't do VFX and get a good crew and also get a nice camera. So let's shoot on phones and make that, that's going to be the style. And it's going to allow us to take it into trains, and it's going to allow us to get this like very low DIY style. So I don't know, it's a philosophy, and I think that it took a while for it to materialize, but I don't know, I think it really helped, and it developed muscles that I really do use every day. Was that
totally answer? Yeah. You're talking about the on and on video too, right, with the train?
Yeah.
I love that video. And I think this is a good follow-up question, and I'm going to ask it while I go turn on a light because I realize I look like a floating head. What is one of your favorite music videos that you shot, and why do you find it so special to you? Carlos.
Well, that on and on video that you just mentioned, I think is one of them, but I just talked about it, so I'll talk about another one. And that one's just special because we did it for no money and we shot it on phones, and it's just like so silly, and it was so liberating just to not have to care about making things look pretty. I think another one that is very special that I watched recently, I was having a nostalgic evening and I was just watching old work. I did a video for a band called the Bowerbirds. It's called Tuck the Darkness In. And that was the first, like, I don't know if it was the first. It was one of the first like professional videos I did. It was also for very, very little money. Every single one of my friends from film school helped on it. My girlfriend at the time produced it. We everyone who's in it, like my mom's in it. It was just a true labor of love. We shot on 5D cameras over a weekend. There's a dentist scene that I asked my dentist to let me shoot in his office for free. So I think that video probably comes to mind, just because it was the definition of indie filmmaking, just a lot of friends, no money, and everyone trying to get together and do something meaningful. So that.
Okay. Bowerbirds?
Bowerbirds. It's a nice song too.
Cool. I think a lot of people would be interested to know how you went from directing Blind Spotting, which was, an indie live action debut feature, to joining Disney to direct an animated movie. Like, I know a little bit about like your childhood love for Disney, but was that something that was kind of like a conscious choice, or was that a door that kind of cracked open and you thought like, oh, I need to go do that? There's a bug.
It was a little bit of both. I mean, I grew up watching Disney, so it's kind of crazy to think that I'm working there now about to release a movie. But I don't, it was definitely not a part of my plan. I just didn't think that it was possible. I imagined I would be, doing indie films for a while, and then maybe when I was 50 or 60, I could do an animated movie. Someone would invite me. I don't know. I mean, I love animation, and I thought that it was one of those like pipe dreams, like, wouldn't it be cool? But I didn't think it was actually possible. And the way it happened, I mean, it's not, no, it is an exciting story. Blind Spotting premiere at Sundance. in 2020. No, not 2020. That's a lie. In 2018, and the person who runs development at Disney Animation, her name is Jessica Julius, saw it at Sundance right around the time where Jennifer Lee, who's the new chief creative officer. I mean, she's not new, but she's the current chief creative officer at Disney Animation, just started working and decided that they were going to invite outside directors to come and join the studio. And they wanted to bring in young voices and they wanted to bring in diverse voices. And Jessica said blind spotting. She showed it to Jen. I guess I thought it was okay. They invited me for coffee. I went to the studio, so excited just to meet them. And then on my way out, they were like, would you ever consider directing animation? And my answer is like, I mean, yes, of course, I would love to. Is that even a thing that I can do? And anyway, long story short, I found out that they were looking into hiring younger directors, and like 6 months later, I had an office at Disney Animation and meeting all these incredible artists. Was that what was your question? How did it happen? Did I answer?
Yeah, I think some a lot of people would be curious. I thought a lot of people would be curious about how do you go from an indie live action feature to a big Disney kind of animated movie.
That was the important part. I can try to answer that.
Let's pause on that because I think we have a really good question from the audience who I think is smarter than I am. How did you usually get opportunities that helped leverage your career? Were opportunities usually presented to you because people saw your previous work, or did you go out and seek out opportunities? How do you advise going about both strategies?
I would say that they go hand in hand. I would say that I worked really hard with the group of people that I was coming up with to make opportunities for ourselves, and that in return transformed into more opportunities. And because we were sort of finding any excuse we could to get work done, other people were able to see it, and then that sort of brought in other opportunities. So I think it was a little bit of both. And it's definitely, I think it's a combination of hard work and luck. I think it was getting opportunities, our friends getting opportunities, and then us trying to just make something out of them. Yeah, shooting on phones.
Yeah, that's the takeaway from this.
Yeah,
I
think people should shoot on phones more often.
Yeah. Okay. Here's a good question. How did you balance financially supporting yourself while also funding passion projects and working for low rates? And I think a question I'll add on to that is kind of you kind of touched upon it with work and how you would borrow crew from commercials. But also I think one thing that's really striking when I look at your work, and I think a lot of filmmakers try and do this over the span of a long time, is regardless if it's a feature film or a short film or an animated video or a theater workshop, and whether it's for just something you and your friends made, or for a huge artist like Billie Eilish, or if you're directing someone else's script or directing someone else's TV show, there's still something about everything you do that is kind of consistently exciting, or something that feels oh, it's your stamp on it. How would you, I think those are two questions, but can you talk about that a little bit?
I'll try to answer both. I mean, I can't say that I figured out, because obviously my circumstances were very specific to me and so many of the things that happened. But what I can share my experience, and then hopefully that is helpful. What I did, and I don't want to say that film school is the answer, because I know that a lot of people are not able to attend film school, or don't want to attend film school, or just film school is not in the cards. And I feel that should not be a obstacle. But for me, I went to film school, and I think what happened is that I had some older friends who had gone to Chapman too and other schools as well, and I realized how hard it got for them to get work after school, and not necessarily hard that it wouldn't happen. It was just it because of all the things you just mentioned, balancing sort of like being able to survive financially and then also doing things that are worthy and exciting to you is really difficult. And a lot of people after graduating school had to end up moving back home, or were not able to get the jobs in film that they wanted. So that to me, and I think my friend group was sort of like an indicator that we really had to start early, and that we had to make use of all of the possibilities that we had while we were at film school to do stuff. So freshman year, like before we even knew what we were doing, we were just shooting music videos, and we were running around with cameras and borrowing equipment from the school and borrowing props. And they have some really cool sound stages there, so trying to use it there. So I think that's the reason why I started working so early, just because we said, look, we have 4 years in which we're essentially being given all these resources to make our movies. And we also have this network of people that is young and needs experience. So we like this opportunity we have right now of doing stuff and doing it for really, really constrained budgets is probably not going to happen ever again. And as the more that we grow and the closer we are to a professional world, the more limited and sort of like the higher the risk is going to be to do these things. So we just had this sort of like hunger to try to do as much as possible as early as possible, and to use advantage of these opportunities. And we did. And honestly, I think that a lot of my friends in that friend group, I think, got a head start on their careers, whether they were producers or DPs or other directors, just because we kind of really pushed to squeeze as much as we could out of our school and its resources. I went back to Chapman a little bit ago to present Blind Spotting, and the person who was running the Q&A asked me, like, what would you say? I mean, we were talking to a bunch of current students. They were like, what would you say? What would be your one advice to Chapman students? And this sounds weird, but I told him my advice would be, abuse Chapman, and while you're here, just try to use as much as you can out of this organization, because as soon as you leave, it's going to be a lot harder to get these toys. So anyway, I'll say that's my experience. And then just to make it a little bit more broader, I also sort of like grew up in professionally with this like network of filmmakers that were all doing music videos. And I feel like the most constant way for sort of like my friend group to survive was just working on each other's projects. So I edited a lot. I had a lot of friends who did production design. I had a lot of friends who did art department. And so I think that's a practical way to get experience and to still learn sort of like things about the field that you're interested in, and also make some money. So we really tried to hire each other as much as possible. That was really helpful.
Yeah, I think what was really interesting, like even just working with you really quickly on Summertime, was seeing how many people you work with are people that you just like went to Chapman with.
Yeah.
Which is cool.
Yeah, and obviously I had that. I was lucky to belong to that circle, but I also had a lot of friends who didn't go to film school, and I think were able to sort of like start their young professional networks. And it comes down to collaboration and making sure that you stick around the people that you like and you connect with, and that you feel like speak your same language and have your sensibilities. So like you should.
Like me. Oh, thanks, Carlos. Okay, we have another audience question, which is a little different than just career stuff, but how have you managed to keep yourself sane, personally and or creatively this year? Which I think is a good question.
Like quarantine related.
Yeah, probably in 2020.
I mean, it's been tricky. It's been really healthy for me to be working at Disney just because it's, you know, provided a creative outlet. But I mean, it hasn't been an easy couple months, as I'm sure everyone knows. I've been trying to watch a lot of movies and listen to a lot of music and connect with, you know, people that bring a little bit of optimism into my life. Also, just, I don't know, plan for the future. I you know, get excited thinking about ideas and thinking creatively. So, you know, trying to keep my mind busy. Been doing a lot of therapy. That's been really good. I don't know. Is that? I don't know.
Well, actually,
I've been trying to take care of myself, and I've been working really hard. But why are you laughing?
no, I'm not laughing. You have a good smile, Carlos. That's why I'm laughing.
I've been watching a lot of Vimeo. The documentary picks on Vimeo, I think, are actually pretty great. I think it's important to tell people that I met you because the first thing I saw that you did was 3,000 miles.
I wonder, okay. Yeah, so I think just to backtrack a little bit to summertime, maybe that would be something interesting we could talk about. Is I think one of the most striking things when we first met, and you kind of told me a little bit about summertime, and well, maybe it would be helpful for you to talk a little bit about what summertime is and sort of how it came to be, because I think that's a really, really cool way for a movie to come to be, and also a really, I think, not surprising to me, but maybe like surprising to people at large, like a surprising second feature to want to make after Blind Spotting.
Yeah, I mean, it was really unexpected, and I think the through line in like everything I've done over the last years is that it's been very surprising, and I think summertime was that. I was in LA, and a good friend of mine is the director of an organization, nonprofit called Get Lit, and they essentially work with young poets to promote literacy through spoken word poetry. So they work with high school students, sometimes college students, and they create curriculum for high schools, and they essentially prepare English teachers and teach them the curriculum so they could do this program. And then a lot of kids come after school, and it's this big network of like young spoken word poets. Anyway, I got invited to this spoken word workshop in which like 30 young poets from LA just back to back came up and performed like a 2-3 minute piece, spoken word piece. And they would talk a little bit about themselves, perform the piece, then someone else would come on stage, and it was like an hour and a half of that. And it was just like the most moving, inspiring like evening of my life. I remember just walking out of there and just having so many emotions and so many thoughts and conversations that I wanted to have. And I was just at home thinking like, how can I support the work that this organization is doing, the work that these young poets are doing? How can I just be like a small something in their journey? So originally we were talking about it as some kind of like live show, because that's how I saw it, and I figured it'd be, you know, the right format for it. And then I thought about this movie called Slacker, which is a 90s film that Richard Linklater directed. And essentially it's a day in Austin, and then you just follow these like seemingly, I mean, no, they are random conversations. They're all interconnected, sort of like one person would take you from one conversation to the next, and that it was sort of like a stream of consciousness. And I also realized there's a lot of parallels with that and what I had seen at this poetry workshop, because essentially it was a group of young artists, all in the sort of like late teens to mid 20s age range, all from LA, talking about their experience in the city. So I pitched to the woman who runs this organization this idea, and I was like, look, what if we did this no budget project and we essentially just filmed these poems. We work with the young poets. They write and they perform their own piece, and then we find ways to connect it. And long story short, that's how Summertime was born. Then it turned into a slightly bigger project, and sort of like the more time, I mean, we did it really quickly, but it sort of like grew and grew. And then more people got involved. We decided that we were going to make it a feature. We got a little bit of money, like very, very little money, but just enough to shoot for a few days with a very, very small crew around LA. And it's essentially, the movie has a very loose structure, but it's a day in the life of the LA youth. And it's written by 25 young poets, and each of them wrote and performed their specific sequences, and then together we workshop ways to tie them together. So person A would perform their poetry, maybe write a scene around it, and then would find a way to create some like connection between this person's journey and the next person's journey, and so on and so forth. And we had 25 different poets. So we did that last summer. It premiered at Sundance this year, and I think we're going to release it hopefully this coming summer, 2021. And yeah, I mean, we will release it. We're just trying to figure out how. But we got a distributor, and we've been working with them trying to figure out the plan. So it's very exciting. And obviously, since quarantine has happened, and a day in the life of LA today feels very different from a year ago. I watched a movie recently, and it took a whole other meaning. And I'm very happy with it, very proud, and I hope a lot of people get to see it.
Me too. I missed that time.
It was very
good. It was good times. Here is another question that I think I'm trying to fit a few more in before we have to wrap up soon.
I'll talk really fast.
Yeah. So I think this would be helpful
Not
for
a
young filmmakers.
Yerba.
You love yerba mate. That's okay. One thing while working with Carlos, he is obsessed with these like little like yerba mate shots. I think I counted one time and I was like, dude, that cannot be healthy.
Since we're getting intimate, they are healthy. I mean, they're not healthy, but they're healthier than, I would say they're healthier than coffee. They're a little bit loose. Okay, they discontinued the yerba mate shots. So now I'm confined to these gigantic tall cans.
So how many of those do you drink per day?
I only do it when I'm either on set, just because I feel like I get really sleepy otherwise, or when I'm like finishing a movie and it's like long hours and I need to be sharp until late in the evening. I don't drink. So this is like the second one I've had all year, and I feel judged. So let's move to the next question.
Okay, let's move on to the question. But that's the key to becoming a successful filmmaker. Guys, drink yerba mates. How do you work with clients and their notes, whether it be a music video, commercial, or feature, in order to make them happy while also achieving your creative vision?
I don't have an answer for that. It's really that's a layered question. I don't know. There's some really good clients with really helpful notes, and there's some not so helpful clients with not such good notes. And I feel like part of being a filmmaker is learning how to deal with both. I mean, I think it's just the nature of what we do is based on compromise. So I think learning how to work with other people and to hear feedback and to negotiate, and if you do have strong feelings or strong vision about something, learning how to voice that in a way that feels constructive. I mean, it comes down to like people skills and being able to being able to meet halfway. I don't know what I'm saying.
We'll get a translator
Yeah.
to interpret all of this. Okay. You talked a little bit about like prepping for the future during quarantine, and
It's all
I know
like
after
hypothetical in my head, just like, wouldn't it be nice to do this? I'm
yeah,
not.
but
Yeah.
wouldn't it be nice to do this? You are attached to direct Disney's live action Robin Hood after Raya, right? I guess maybe you don't. I don't know how much you can talk about it, but I guess a question surrounding that is, what lessons from your background in live action did you find useful in directing an animated film? And then now, after having directed an animated film, what lessons did you learn from directing that you bring back over to live action? Is from a smart audience member.
Oh, that was an audience question.
It was both. I had that question too, but I'll give the credit to them.
No, it's okay. I think animation has been incredible because there's so much thoughtfulness and intentionality behind every single frame. And not that there isn't in live action, but in animation, you like really have to know how to communicate a feeling and a gesture and emotion, a color. And so it's been, I tell people who ask me how my Disney experience has been, and I tell people that it feels like I went back to school, that I went to sort of like a filmmaking master's, because I'm working with such talented people and learning again how to make a film, but with so much thought and time and I guess intentionality is the word. And I think, I don't know, I'm excited to see how it impacts my live action brain, because I definitely think that I've learned so much in the year that I've been here, and I would imagine it's really going to influence everything that I do after, whether it's animated or not. The Robin Hood news, I think, is in theory, they're unofficial, and it was sort of like leaked. So
oh, really?
So I don't get into trouble. I'm just gonna say I cannot confirm nor deny what you're asking.
I don't know what I said either. We'll have Nifty delete that part.
You're getting your information from questionable sources.
Yes, the Hollywood Reporter, I believe. I'm just gonna stop talking. And I know I think we're gonna run out of time pretty soon, but I think this might be a general question. If it is the last one, I do want to ask it. Do you have any words of advice for young filmmakers, but especially those who are sort of in film school right now, or who just graduated and are trying to find their footing in this industry in our sort of current COVID reality? What advice would you kind of give them to kind of keep going?
That's a big one. I don't know if anyone knows, how to handle everything that's happening. I would just say that what was the healthiest for me starting up and finding my footing, and the first few years, like they're rough. Like, work is not going to come immediately, and you're not gonna overnight be sustaining yourself doing what you love, and it's a long path ahead. But I think what kept me inspired through it all was that I really tried my best to work on projects that I cared about and that I believed in. Whether it was a small music video, even when I was doing commercial work, I tried to surround myself with friends and people who I think shared sort of like my values and my vision. And I really did put a lot of thought into making sure that the projects that I was going to spend time on were projects that I considered important, or were telling stories that I felt like needed to be shared. And it's like filmmaking is not really, I can't say it's always easy. Like it comes with a lot of time and dedication and compromise and really, really hard work. So I would say, unless you're convinced that this is your passion and that you really want to do this, do think about whether or not you want to do this, because it's a big commitment unless you're absolutely in love with it. And I think that I was, and that's what made it I think just easier to, and still like it's like the summer was hard, and getting used to making a big studio movie was challenging, and it's there's good days and there's not so good days. So I feel like knowing that I'm working on something that I believe is worthy of my time and my energy and my effort, I think ends up being sort of like the most important thing you have to fall back on.
Best answer so far, I think. It was inspiring, Carlos.
Thank you.
Yeah. I'm sure we're going to end anytime soon, but I'm just going to keep asking questions because there are more questions in the box until we get kicked out. But here is a question of mine. I think a lot of young filmmakers, myself included, I think there's a little bit of pressure when you're starting out to obviously make the things that you're excited about, and no matter what the budget is or the client or whatever. But I think there's a lot of pressure to like have these projects have success in the form of like laurels or views or badges or whatever, just because it opens doors for other people, for like other entities to be like, oh, this project is successful, even if it's the same whether or not you got any sort of accolade or whatever. And you know, your projects are premiered at Sundance and South by, and like have gone blah blah blah. How would you define a successful project now than you did 8 years ago, 9 years ago?
I mean, I think I tried to have the same measure of success, and I feel like it's honestly very much tied to what I said a second ago, which is I tried to work on projects that I feel like are meaningful, and if I am able to capture that feeling or that essence or that thing that I consider important, then I think that a project is successful. I think it's harsh to judge anything anyone does based on other people's reactions or other people's understanding of success. And honestly, I had to remind myself that in summertime, just because it was such a gamble, and it was such an experiment, and it was such like outside of my comfort zone experience, working on a project that had no script, working on a project that was written by first-time actors, first-time filmmakers, and having to remind myself that their voices were worthy of my time and the work of our crew, and whether the movie was seen by 100 people or 2,000 people or 2 million people, that I was putting my time into something that I considered worthwhile, and I wanted other people to hear these young artist stories. So I don't know. I also did a lot of work that didn't get seen, and I did a lot of videos early on that still have like 3,000 views on YouTube. So I don't know. I know that this is it's easier said than done, but I feel like at the end of the day, if you are capturing the thing that excites you the most about a story or a project, and you're able to do it in a way that feels honest and true to yourself as an individual and the story that you're trying to capture, I feel like that to me is equal success, and everything that comes after that is just icing and luck. And 2 people may see it or 100 people may see it, but I don't know, I feel like that satisfaction that you get when you do something that you believe in it is not really going to be comparable to like any sort of like accolades or like where your project premieres. So I don't know, it's again easier said than done, and I have to remind myself. It's and this similarly to everything else we've talked about. I don't think it's scalable. Like it's really the same. I'm working on this Disney movie that is likely going to have like a big release and a lot of people are going to see, but you still don't know how they're going to react to it, or what the general opinion is going to be. But ultimately that's like out of your hands, and I feel like it would be sort of like unfair to myself or the team that I'm working with to gauge its success based on that. I think we're all very proud of the work we're doing, and we've worked really hard on it, and I feel like that's sort of like as much as is under our control. That's all.
Good answers, Carlos. I
Thanks.
like that one. Okay, I'm just gonna rifle through one more. We have room for 1 or 2 more questions. So if anyone has questions, pepper them in right now. Otherwise, I will scroll. Between all of the different formats and mediums you've worked in, music video, TV, and film, do you feel like you gravitate towards any particular one? And is there a format that you like to try that you haven't done yet?
I love making movies, but they're super stressful. Music videos are really fun, and I hope I get to do them for a long time. I've always wanted to do theater. I mean, I've done some theater, but I've always wanted to do theater professionally. So I don't know, maybe one day I'll get to do that.
Theater. You did do theater before, though, right?
I mean, never professionally, but I like that. Sounds fun. I love theater. My grandma's a theater actress, so I have a soft spot for the theater.
You acted in one of your music videos, right? The Black Box one? Is it that was called? Black Taxi?
Black Taxi. Let's
yeah, I love that video.
Thank you.
If anyone wants to go watch Carlos dance, it's great. And one more question. One person said they just caught Summertime at the virtual Milwaukee Film Festival and loved it. I was curious about the use of poetry in both of your features. Any particular reason why you feel so drawn to capturing poetry in motion on film, Carlos?
That's amazing that, who is this person? What's the name? What's this person's name?
I don't know. I don't think it says. Does anyone want to reveal?
Fine. It's fine.
Reveal yourself.
I that's amazing that you were able to see it, whoever you are. I don't know. That's a good question. I am good friends with this poet called George Watsky, who's a spoken word poet and a rapper. We're very good friends, and we were having a beer a few days ago. And Daniel, thank you for asking, Daniel. I'm glad you saw it, and I hope you enjoyed it. Actually, and that you're not just saying that to be nice. I was talking to George Watsky, and I was asking him the same question. I was like, I don't know. I'm not a poet. I don't know why my life is so intertwined with like poetry and rap and spoken word. And he gave me this very profound answer, which I'll share. But he was like, well, I think that it's because spoken word poetry really tries to capture truth as like its simplest form. And some form of truth, and I think that the work you're after is also trying to sort of like do that and be sort of like very honest and very simple. So these are George Watsky's words, not my own. But I think it's true. I I think poetry just somehow came into my life, and I all of a sudden became part of this network of artists and poets and musicians. And it really helped me, I think, sort of like focus my work and learn to dig deep and be very specific and be very simple and be very intentional about sort of like the words and tools and the way you're telling stories. So I think that is the answer. It's not my answer. That's what George Watsky had to say. But it rings true. I think he's right.
Thanks, George. Thanks, George Watsky, for that.
Yeah.
Very good, intelligent answer.
Thank you so much. What a beautiful note to end on too, because Sean, 3,000 miles is kind of very poetic as well. I mean, it's kind of video poetry. That's my take. That's my hot take on 3,000 miles.
Just to tie it all together, I know that we're out of time, but Sean, that is really why we reached out to you in the first place, because we saw 3,000 miles and we were just like, this is poetry, and like we want to try to figure out a way to do what these poets are doing visually, and Sean came on to the team, and I can't wait for you to see the movie, mostly to see his work, because he elevated the movie, and I tell people at summertime it's like 50% me, 50% Sean's work, and it's incredible. And thank you for showcasing it at NFFTY.
Thank you, Carlos.